All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Kabbalah Cafe. Super excited to be here this morning with y'all. All right, so today the topic is Hello Darkness. By the way, we'll get you on the list. I send out an email usually before Shabbat with the topic of the week. And so would love to, after class, just let me know, give me your information. We'll get you on the list. All right, so here we go. So today's topic is Hello Darkness, which, by the way, fits with last week's class. Last week's class was Sounds of Silence, which the song of Sound of Silence begins with the term or with the words, Hello Darkness, my old friend, which means basically I'm stuck on the same song now for 2 weeks. But today is a different topic. And today I want to talk about something that I think is, I don't know if I'm using the right word, but I think I am endemic, not in a bad way, but something that is intrinsic, inherent to biblical hero stories. But I think it's so inherent that sometimes we take it for granted, or we don't pay attention, we don't realize what exactly is going on. And I'll share with you what I mean. What I mean is that at the core of all hero stories, well, I can't say all, many of the hero stories in Torah, in the Bible, is this idea of triumph being born of struggle. Like that storyline of the difficulty, of the struggle, of the challenge, of the hitting a wall, right? Hitting the wall and not seeing a way through, and then the breakthrough happening, and then the hero emerging like in slow-mo from the destruction or from the darkness behind him or her. I feel like that is a very strong theme that you have throughout Torah. So let's go through some cases. I want to start actually with Avram, Abraham, and I would say that the same thing is true with his wife, Sarah, but I'll just stick with it. To make it easier, Abraham, Avram, who is the father of Judaism. Actually, parenthetically, there's a discussion and debate when Judaism begins formally. Does Judaism begin with Avram, with Abraham, or does it begin at Mount Sinai with the giving of the Torah? That's a technical question. Might be an important question, but it's not one that I want to address now. For right now, let's just say that he's considered to be, whether literally or figuratively, the father of Judaism. And thus, we're going to explore him as the first hero and this story. So what do we see with the life and times of Avram? So the first thing we encounter is the fact that he grew up in a context of idolatry. In other words, if you think about where he shines as the hero, if we conceptualize Abraham Avinu, our patriarch Avram, as the father of Judaism, or maybe more specifically, as the not originator, but the first one to really promote monotheism to the world in a way with love and kindness, as is the Jewish approach. So if that's the case, then the first thing we encounter is the fact that he was born, and I'm going to use the word ironically, I don't know if irony is really the right word here, but he was born, fascinatingly enough, in a house, in a context steeped with idolatry. So basically, his space of heroism is born of the opposite space, of a contrast space, a contrasting space. We all know the famous Midrashic story where his father, Terach, right, runs an idol shop. I like to think of it as idols are us. He runs this idol shop and he leaves for a little bit and he puts his son, Avram, Abraham, in charge. And how old is he at this time? I don't know. So when I was a kid and I heard this story, I pictured him as a little kid. When I got older, I pictured him maybe as a teenager, and maybe 20-something. I don't know. We don't have a clear timeline. In fact, even the question as to when Abraham discovers God is the subject of much debate. Some sources say 3, some say 13, some say 20. Different sources, different opinions. And if you want to mash them up together, you would say that he discovered God, in various stages. So was there one point? It's like, when did you realize, when did you decide what you wanted to do in life? Well, it happened in stages. I first got a sense then, and then I got another sense then. And then it evolves. Point being that his father, Terach, puts him in charge of the idol shop. And famously, the Midrash says that it comes back a little while later, and all of the idols are smashed, save one, save the biggest idol. The merchandise. The merchandise is gone. Imagine you give your kid the keys to the grocery shop, and then all the food is destroyed. What is this? He says to his son, what did you do? I'm sure he didn't say it like that. I'm sure there was a little bit more or anger involved. And his son says, Avram says, well, Avram, right? Young Avram says to his father, me, I didn't do anything. I'm an innocent party in this situation. I saw that the youngest idol, little baby idol, was hungry. So I got a bowl of soup or food or porridge or whatever they ate then, and I put it in front of the little one. Upon which a bigger idol said, how dare you feed the little one before the bigger one? I'm way more important. And started shouting. And then there were those that came to the defense of the little idol and said, no, the little idol needs to eat. Little idol, right? You got to eat. And then more defended the older idol. And then it turned out to a whole brawl, like a straight up street brawl. And the final one left standing was the biggest idol. And indeed, look, there's a hammer nearby, and the biggest idol smashed all the little idols. Upon which Terach said to Avram, are you kidding me? You want me to believe this story? That the idols have this awareness and are fighting about things, have feelings and are fighting and have the ability to move and do anything? And he says, do you hear yourself? This is what you worship? Something that has no power and no ability? That's what you worship? I'm the fool. I don't know how bold he got with his dad, but that was his lesson, teaching his father about monotheism. Avram comes from a challenging background. He then has the challenge with his wife of not being able to have a child. He then faces, as our sages tell us, it's in the Torah, most of them are in the Torah, he faces 10 tests. Famously, 10 nisyonot, 10 tests of faith, culminating with the binding of Isaac of his son after his son is finally born. By the way, one of the tests is circumcision at the age of 99. It's like, are you kidding me? Where's the hidden camera here? You would think Avram would say, like, am I being pranked? Like, what is this? Are you kidding? Every hero emerges from challenge, from drama, or from trauma, from difficulty. Show me a hero in the Torah that had an easy path without any hiccups along the way. I would say show me any human being that has ever had an easy path without any hiccups along the way, but we see this in the Torah. Yitzchak, Isaac, we don't know much about him. Of all the patriarchs, we know the least about Isaac. We know that he was a well digger. We also know that his father arranged his marriage, but he orchestrated the ability, to find a wife for him. What else do we know about him? We know that he was, as I mentioned, he was brought up as an offering, and his father binds him to an altar on top of the mountain, pulls out a knife. That's not a knife. Wait, am I doing the right accent? This isn't it. What? Right, but that movie wasn't Australian. Did I mix Steve Irwin and whatever? Doesn't matter. Whatever it is, that's not a knife. This is a knife. Where that's from somewhere. Okay, doesn't matter. So what's the point? Oh, Crocodile. Oh, so was he Australian? He was Australian. All right, good. All right, perfect. Back to the storyline. So Isaac is brought as an offering. Imagine the trauma. Your own dad is bringing you up as an offering. The Torah doesn't get into this PTSD. Doesn't get into it. But clearly, this is not like, what do you go to ice cream afterwards? I don't even know what you do after that. Maybe you do. Maybe because you realize that your dad is so dedicated to God that he'll even be willing to bring you up as an offering. Maybe. Oh, Dad, don't get any ideas. I'm just saying, right? But what is the it's a very interesting story. It's a very compelling story. Then you have Jacob. Then you have Yaakov. Jacob. Wow. I mean, he grows up with a twin brother that is like the polar opposite of him. He grows up in a household that is torn. His father has an affinity to his twin. His mother has an affinity to him. So it's a bit of a I don't know if you want to call it a breached household. By the way, I will say parenthetically, there's a discussion in the Torah about the Ben Sorer Umorer, right? Ben Sorer Umorer, which is the child, the rebellious son. And the Torah prescribes a very serious consequence for this rebellious son. It's not the son who plays too much Xbox and doesn't clean his room. That's not what we're talking about with the rebellious son. We're talking about some very serious felonies that this child commits at a very specific age in a very specific order. And the Torah says that the punishment is, again, a very serious punishment, up to and including capital punishment. However, as the Torah describes the situation, it says that this child is someone, einenu shomea, the son is someone who does not listen, b'kol imo, b'kol aviv, b'kol imo, something like that. He doesn't listen to the sound, to the voice of his father or the voice of his mother. The commentaries wonder, why does it say b'kol aviv or b'kol imo? The voice of his father, the voice. Why not just say b'kol aviv v'imo? He doesn't listen to the voice of his father and mother. Why does it say the word voice twice? He doesn't listen to the voice of his father and the voice of his mother. Why not? He doesn't listen to the voice of his father and mother. It's an extra word in Torah. It's hard to describe without visualizing it, but take my word for it. There's an extra word called voice, which prompts the commentaries to say the following. The Talmud actually says this, that in order for this ben soreh or maret, in order to be liable for this type of punishment and consequence, this child's parents have to have the same voice. They have to sound the same. Physically, they have to sound the same. Now, most of the time, a father and a mother, their voices sound different, right? Right, just physically. However, the Talmud says, that's why the Talmud also says that this scenario likely never happened or could ever happen, because it's so far-fetched based on when you look at the Torah and how it needs to play out. Exactly, it's not actually practical. It's more of like a cautionary tale about, about children gone rogue or whatever the lessons are, etc. Thank you. Who's that? Mark. Oh, all right. We'll rescue him. That was fast. Oh, wow. There we go. All right. So back to the plot. So the mystics say the following. It's not just that they have to have identical voices physically, but the Torah is really telling us about what causes this condition in the first place. What brings about the rebellious child? It's that the kol aviv, the kol imo were different. It's that the voice of the father and the voice of the mother weren't on the same page. When the parents aren't on the same page, it creates within the child, Mark, good to see you. Amazing. When the parents are not on the same page, it causes havoc within the child. The father has one set of values. The mother has another set of values. It creates confusion. And so what the Torah is saying is, b'kol aviv, b'kol imo, fundamentally, the parents being aligned is a powerful thing. So imagine now you're Jacob, you're Yaakov. Your father has an affinity to Esau. Your mother has an affinity to you. It's complicated. It's complicated, right? Who was it that said this? Someone once wrote the following: if you don't believe in ghosts, you've never been to a family reunion, right? It's like there's always drama, there's always stuff that comes up. And in Yaakov's life, when you think about his life and times, we see this very, very, very clearly. He struggles with his brother. His mother tells him to dupe his own father, right? Remember that story? Dress up and fool your old dad who's blind and can't see. I'm paraphrasing the story. It's kind of what happens. That creates some complicated messaging. Then he goes to his uncle to protect him. And what does his uncle do? Swindles him. He tricks him, even to the point of giving him the wrong daughter to marry. I mean, that's not a small thing. That's not like you ordered chicken, I gave you meat at the wedding. That's not that, right?
The old switcheroo.
The old switcheroo, exactly. The old switcheroo, right? But this is serious business, this old switcheroo. This was serious business. And then, finally, he's out of Laban. After 20 plus years, he leaves in the middle of the night. He realizes he can't get out any other way. He has to get out in a furtive way. He has to get out in a little bit of in the darkness, in the cloak of night. Otherwise he can't get out. He's too entrenched. So middle of the night, he runs, gets chased after. Laban chases after him. Why'd you run? Abanim banai v'abanes benoisei v'chol asher loy li. It's all mine. Laban says to him, all of your stuff is really mine. He's like, exactly. That's my point. That's why I had to run away in the middle of the night, because I know that you don't give me any space, right? I own you. So that's why I'm leaving. So what happens? So Yaakov finally leaves his uncle. And then he encounters his brother, and it actually goes surprisingly well. And then what happens? And then, as the Torah tells us, his daughter gets abducted, Dinah. And then after that, his son. After all of that drama, Vayeshev Yaakov, the Torah says, in Parashat Vayeshev. And Rashi says, Yaakov, Ratza Yaakov, Leshev Bashalva. Yaakov, Jacob, finally wanted to rest. Well, doesn't sound right. Rest in peace. No, not that type of rest in peace, but rest in tranquility. Live peacefully. After all of the drama with his brother, with his uncle, with his daughter, all of that drama, finally, can we have a few calm years in my old age? And then what happens? Joseph. He loses his beloved Joseph. He thinks he's dead. He doesn't know. He's gone. Son is gone. And then all the drama around that story that takes another few decades. We're talking about individuals who went through real challenge. And then you think about the next great hero. Well, talk about Joseph. Joseph, right? It wasn't all Technicolor dream coats and happiness. When it comes to Joseph, when it comes to Yosef, right? He lived you could say on the one hand, he lived a blessed life, and then he lived a very difficult life. You know, there's two types of stories. There's the rags to riches story. And then I would say there's the riches to rags to riches story. And are they different? I don't know that they're different. I think the riches to rags to riches story just makes the rags that much more difficult because you didn't grow up with the rags. So Yosef, for the first 17 years of his life, he's like the prince. He's like the prince of the family. He's the little one, and everyone loves him, or his father loves him. Not everyone, sorry, not at all, right? His father loves him. Then what happens? Now he's a slave in Egypt. He's a slave. And then he's framed for a crime he doesn't commit, and now he's an inmate, right? Locked up for a crime he did not commit. And he's languishing until finally he gets a break. And then he rises. And then it's good. Moses. Well, Moses is a rags to riches story. If you ever heard one. He's born to a Jewish family. He's hidden by his mother for 3 months. Why? Because he should be killed. He should be dead. Rags. Then he's rescued on the Nile River by the daughter of Pharaoh, raised in the palace for a number of years. Riches. Then he defends his brethren, and he has to run away for 4 decades to a place called Midian. Rags. Challenges. Then he comes back as a hero. Riches. No one has a straight path toward greatness. There is no figure in the Torah that has an easy and a straightforward path to greatness. Avram's path is complicated. Yitzchak's path is complicated. Yaakov's path is complicated. Yosef's path is complicated. Moshe's path is complicated. No one has an easy life. No one. No one in the Torah has an easy life. It's easy to gloss over. So Moses, he was the man. You know what he went through? You know what Moshe went through? He went through decades of his face being on, I don't know what they put it on the Egyptian wanted, Egyptians most wanted, right? Pharaoh wanted to kill him. Imagine the level of hatred that Pharaoh had to Moses, the young boy, the baby that his daughter had rescued, grew up in his palace, and now it turned against his people. The one that he knew was prophesied about by his stargazers. They said to throw the Jewish boys into the Nile because they saw that Moses' downfall would come through water, which it did eventually when he hit the rock instead of speaking to the rock. Imagine when Pharaoh finally realizes that was the prophecy, and I've been raising in my palace, I've been raising the one that's going to bring me down. Imagine that level of, now we got to get rid of him. This is what Moses dealt with. It wasn't an easy life.
But that's true. Why didn't, when he went to Pharaoh just take him, kill him?
That's a very good question. I think that's a general question on the story, on the larger.
What was the question?
Oh, sorry. Hey, let me repeat the question. It's a good question. The question is, when Moses and Aaron come to Pharaoh, say, let my people go, why doesn't Pharaoh say, come closer, done? Why does he just get rid of him right there and then? Why does he entertain this whole, why even entertain the dialogue? If Pharaoh has all the power, which he did, why not just guards grab them, execute them, and hang them up for all to see? I don't know. It's a very good question. I don't have a good answer for that. On some level, I don't know. I guess it's like in every good movie, it's like the villain keeps the good guy around for long enough that the good guy can escape and flip the script. All right. It's like, and I'll come back to get rid of you. Like, right. And then in the meantime, escape. I don't know. It's a good question. There was a change in the Pharaoh. Well, some say it was a change, some say it was a change of heart. I mean, either way, I would assume that Moses was was 80 years old when he stepped before Pharaoh to say, let my people go. He was 80 years old, and Pharaoh would have been older than that. Yeah, it would have been a very old Pharaoh. Very old Pharaoh. So anyway, I don't know. It's an interesting question. But either way, as who? Oh, depends which movie you saw. Depends which version of this. Depends which script, because sometimes they try to embellish it, like Moses and the new Pharaoh. They played baseball together, and now they're rivals. Look, the question of why doesn't he just get rid of him is a valid question. I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen that question discussed. I think it's a good question. I don't know. I mean, if that would have happened, the story would have been awkward to the story. But there we have it. The point, though, the overall point is that no one has an easy and straightforward path. And so this is what I want to talk about today, the idea of the confluence of what we would call, let's say, darkness and light. Or more specifically, in order to get to the light, you have to go through darkness. Now, this is a major theme in Kabbalistic teachings in Kabbalah, this idea that you have to first have darkness and then light. So I want to trace this a little bit in the context of creation, and then get into this on the level of the sefirot, the mystical energies, and then talk about this on a personal level as well. So let's begin with the following. In the account of creation, in the Torah's narrative of creation, Torah tells us the world was created in 6 days, right? God created for 6 days and rested on the seventh. For each of the 7 days of creation, it discusses what was made on that day, and then it culminates and concludes with the following. Vayihi erev, vayihi boker, yom echad. Vayihi erev, vayihi boker, yom sheni. Vayihi erev, vayihi boker, yom shlishi. And I'll translate. And it was evening, and it was morning, day 1. And it was evening, and it was morning, day 2. And it was evening, and it was morning, day 3. This is the way the Torah describes a day. In other words, the Hebrew word for day is yom, right? Yom means day. But unlike in English, where day, well, I guess English is the same thing. Day could mean day versus night, or day could mean the whole 24 hours. Are you with me on that? Right. When you say day, right, you could either mean the whole 24 hours of that day, day and night, or you might say, I'll meet you during the day as opposed to the night. So the same thing is true in Hebrew. Conceptually, it could be true in Hebrew that yom, day, could either be daylight hours, or it could be the 24 hours. In the Torah, in the narrative of creation, the Torah clearly uses the word yom to be the full unit of 24 hours. And that's why, again, it says, and it was evening, and it was morning, day 1. In other words, day 1 is comprised and composed of an evening, nighttime, and a morning and a daytime. And what we see in that narrative is that when it comes to a day, the first thing you encounter is the Erev, is the evening. And only later, only then do you encounter the morning. The Jewish day famously starts at night. Now, in the I don't know if there's any other calendar that does it any differently than the way it is done in America, where the calendar day begins at 12 a.m. I don't know. I don't know enough calendars around the world to know the distinctions. But the date changes at midnight. In Judaism, in Jewish law, the new day begins at sunset, at nightfall, not at midnight, right? That's why Shabbat begins, I don't know, depending on the time of year, it begins nowadays, 8:30-ish, whatever that time of, so it begins at night. So the day begins at night, which is a very odd construct. And again, I know that even in America, the day begins at midnight, which is also the same idea that it begins, similar, that it begins at night and then you roll into the day. I find that fascinating. It all comes from Torah, because the Torah says, Vayhi Erev, Vayhi Boker, Yom Rishon. It was evening and it was morning, day one, which means that the day begins at night. And the way so that's the historical construct, the biblical construct. Now let's advance it to to a personal connection. Then we're going to get into some Kabbalah here. On a personal level, the message is that in order to get to the light, you're going to have to go through the darkness. And if you got to light without darkness, then likely that light is nothing to write home about. In other words, a breakthrough that happens without breaking through is likely not a breakthrough in the first place. If you arrive at something, there's a phrase in the Talmud, Yogaiti velo matzati al tamen. Lo yogaiti umatzati al tamen. Yogaiti umatzati tamen. And I'll translate. If someone works hard and they don't succeed, and they say, someone tells you, I worked hard and I didn't succeed, don't believe it. If someone says, I succeeded, but I didn't work hard, don't believe it. Someone says, I worked hard and succeeded, believe it. In other words, someone says, I had a breakthrough and it came easy. Super easy. I didn't have to work. I didn't have to study. I didn't have to push. It was a breakthrough. It just opened up right before me. So walking down the street, breakthrough. The likelihood of that happening is very minimal. It's probably fake news. Probably fake. Could happen, but
it happens all the time. Like sometimes I could work my butt off and get nowhere. Sometimes I don't even try to get something. But
I'll tell you. But here's no. I appreciate that.
I've experienced it.
But I'll tell you what I think. I think that in those cases, the stuff that happens without working on it, as you said, as you described, that's all after you did a lot of work in other areas and to prepare yourself. It's like what scientists say, like the scientists who invented like antibiotics, because he left something out right in a lab and it grew bacteria. Mm-hmm. That only happens after years of training. That accident can only happen. You have a lab, you have training, you know what you're looking for, you know what you're seeing, etc. That doesn't just happen. So I'm saying, I don't disagree with you. Obviously, you can speak for yourself, but even when stuff just happens, but you put yourself in a certain place. You've gone through challenge. You've pushed yourself in a certain direction, and now you have the opportunity to enjoy also those happy accidents. But I do believe that the work is always part of what we enjoy afterwards. In other words, you can't really have a true breakthrough without first doing the work. Whether we see it in that space or whether we see it maybe in a different space, it has to come after challenge, after struggle, after work. Because Vayhi Erev, Vayhi Boker Yom Echad. If you want to achieve a Boker, if you want to achieve the morning, you have to go through the darkness. You have to go through the night. That's the way it works. Let's talk about this mystically. So the Midrash says that it gives an example, an analogy. It says there was a king, a parable. There was a king who had beautiful crystal glasses. And he wanted to pour liquid into the crystal glasses. First, he thought, let me pour hot liquid into the crystal glasses. He said, that's not going to work. they're going to shatter, they're going to break. It's not good. Then he said, let me put cold water into the glasses, but that's also not good. Because cold water, it's going to condensate. It's going to get like condensation on the outside. It's not going to look so nice. So what did he do? He mixed the hot with the cold, and it looked great. He put out the water. Everyone drank it. Ugh, lukewarm water. This is gross. I'm kidding. They drank it, and it was fine. That's the story. So it's the same thing when God created the world. In the beginning, God wanted to create the world with midat hadin. In the beginning, God wanted to create the world with midat hadin, which means the attribute of justice, severity, din, gvura. We'll get to that in a second. He saw that the world could not exist and be sustained with harshness. So then he decided, I'll create it with midat harachamim, with compassion and understanding and forgiveness. But that also is not going to be good. So he mixed the din with the rachamim. He mixed the justice with the compassion, and that's how it created the world. Let me explain. The beginning, God wanted to create the world with strict and exacting judgment, which means one false move and you're out. Imagine if God created a world like that. The moment we deviated off script, our character gets pulled out of the show. Right? Imagine you're running a show, right, on Apple TV or on Hulu. What's your favorite streaming platform? Netflix. What is it? Chayflix? Chayflix. I feel like I should. Is that a Jewish? That's a thing.
Israeli.
Really? You pay a subscription straight up, just like Netflix. Interesting. Chayflix. CHAIFLIX. Ah,
Subtitles and everything?
does it have subtitles? Nice. All right, I have to check it out. Oh, they have shtisel. I was wondering where shtisel existed.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, back to the story. So imagine you're on a show, and imagine you decide, you know what? You're doing, let's say, live. Yeah, it's even better. Let's not say recorded, because recorded, they can adjust that. But let's say live. You're doing live theater, and you decide as the character on stage, you're going to go off on your own tangent. You're just going to go and create your own character and go off script. You know what's going to happen? You might get the old hook where they pull you off stage. You might get pulled off stage because what are you going after? So in the beginning, God wanted to create the world with midat hadin, which means strict and exacting justice and judgment. You go off script, you're out. Then God realized, again, it's not like God didn't know, but this is the way it unfolds in the narrative. Then God realizes, nope, that's not going to work. So let me go the other extreme, which is extreme forgiveness and understanding, which means at its core, whatever you do is fine. Whether you're on script, whether you're off script, we love you unconditionally. That is extreme love and extreme compassion, extreme rachamim. Imagine that. Whatever you do is fine. But that also is no good. Why is that no good? Because then you're never going to get where you want to go. Yeah, you have a world that's chaotic. Imagine if there was no law and order at all. So if it's too strict, you can't move. You're suffocated. If there's no justice, if there's no judgment, if there are no standards, then it's a free-for-all, then it's anarchy. So God mixes din with rachamim, and then that's the balance of the world. By the way, so Kabbalah tries to break down, what does it mean that why was God's first approach a harsh justice approach? What does that mean? And one of the ways, and this is discussed in many sources in Kabbalah, but one of the ways that it's explained is by utilizing the example of the sfirot, or the midot, of the energies of chesed and gevura. So let's talk about that for a second. Chesed and gevura. What is chesed? Chesed is kindness. So we know that there are 10 sfirot, 10 energies that God utilized to create the world. There's 3 intellectual energies, chachma, bina, and dat. Last week, I think we spoke about chachma and bina. Then you have the 7 emotional attributes, 7 emotional midot or sfirot, chesed, kindness, gevura, severity, tiferet, compassion, netzach, ambition, hod, humility, yesod, bonding, connection, communication, and malchut, leadership. These are your 10 energies that God employs in creating the world, and 10 energies that God, since we're creating the divine image, that God implants within the unique human soul. Every being has a soul. Every animal has a soul. Every plant has a soul. Every rock and stone has a soul. The Ari Sollish famously says that even an Evan domain, even a still and silent rock, has a nefesh, has a soul. So far be it from Judaism saying that no, only humans have soul. Every being, every entity, if it exists, it has a soul. It has a divine energy pulsing through it, whether we see it move or not. Everything has a soul. What distinguishes a human soul from other forms of life? The human soul has the mirror image of these divine attributes. Just like God employs these 10 sfirot whilst creating the world, God also injects these 10 midot, these 10 energies within the human being, within the human soul. And so we have likewise these attributes. We have chachma, which is creative intelligence. We have bina, which is analytical intelligence. We have dat, which is idea of focus and perception. We have chesed, kindness. We have gvura. We have strictness. Let's focus on those two, chesed and gvura. Chesed is love. Chesed is kindness. Chesed is forgiveness. Chesed is an open hand. Gevura is the opposite. Gevura is withholding, limitation, constriction. Gevura is creating space and boundaries, creating limitations. So for example, let's give a classic parenting analogy. When it comes to parenting, a modality of chesed would be, oh, Tana's here, thank you. You are the hero that rescues folks at the door. So when it comes to chesed, parenting by chesed would be the idea, the modality of giving, of understanding, of giving infinite amount of, what is it? Leeway, rope, string, whatever it is. It's like, sure, hey, good to see you, welcome. Right? It's giving infinite, thank you, giving infinite amount of space and patience and loving and understanding and whatever you want, whatever you need, I'm giving. Chesed is again an open hand. Gevura is the opposite, it's a closed hand. Gevura says no. Gevura says no, or not now, or Gevura creates limitations. Gevura creates boundaries. Gevura says, Chesed says yes, Gevura says no. So again, Chesed would be, the child asks, can I have a lollipop before dinner? Chesed is absolutely. Conceptually. I don't know if that's really chesed, but that's conceptually chesed. Gevura is no. Not that gevura is mean. Gevura is not mean. Gevura is no because it's not appropriate. That's not what we do. That's not the right thing. It's not healthy. Whatever the rationale is, but the gevura is the ability to say no, the ability to put boundaries, to put borders around something. The ability to close it off and say no. Chesed is open, gevura is closed. Now, which one is healthier? Well, clearly God likes both because he gave us both, which means that both are needed. Sometimes you have to open and sometimes you have to close. And life is really about that balance in every relationship. It's about how open is an area or something versus how closed is. It's in every conversation, every relationship, every element. In fact, think about the heart pumping, right? It expands and then it contracts. Literally life, the life that's currently beating in your chest right now is the product of switching off between chesed and gvura. Chesed, gvura, expansion, contraction. The pulse of life, the pulse, right? The pulse, your heartbeat is a product of the duality, the flipping back and forth between chesed and gvura. If you have only expansion and not contraction, you're dead. If you only contraction and no expansion, you're also dead, right? Life is literally the product of expansion and contraction, the balance, the vacillating between the two in rapid succession. And life is likewise a product of those two, which explains how God created the world. Initially, God wanted to create the world with only gvura, only constriction, only justice, only judgment. Not possible. Then God says, how about the other extreme? Only openness, only expansion, only understanding and forgiveness and love and openness. That's also not healthy. That's also not sustainable. You need to have both. You can't pour hot water into the glasses. You can't pour cold water into the glasses. It's got to be the perfect mix, the perfect blend of the hot and the cold. Mark, you want to say something?
I was just going.
I could see it in your eyes, but I wasn't sure.
The first person you talked about copyright
Yes.
explained that for advertising, we can't do pure creativity. If those who want to be creative writers, that's fine. We can't do pure creativity, and you can't do pure sales. So you have to employ what she called disciplined creativity.
Nice.
It's the same thing you're talking
Perfect.
about.
I love that. Discipline, creativity. Okay, give me a quick copy for a Kabbalah class. Go. I'm kidding. Or not. But yeah, right. So it's not, you can't like just write, I guess creativity would be what? Just like a story of something out there, something too whimsical.
Pure creativity.
It's got to be also focused on.
Yeah, like the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock was "Let us go, then you and I, when the evening is against the sky, with like a patient upon the operating table." This wouldn't work in advertising copy.
Got it.
You know?
Got it. All right. So life is an amalgam. Life is a combination of chesed and gevura, of this openness and this constriction, of this love as well as this discipline. That's the way life is. But Kabbalah then takes it a step further and says, what is chesed? What is gevura on a deeper level? And so here's what I want to share with you. Chesed, and I think the context that I want to frame this is in a teaching from Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers. It says in the 5th chapter of Ethics of the Fathers, the following. It says, God could have created the world with only one utterance. So why did he use 10 utterances? There are 10 times in the narrative of creation that God says, let there be. Let there be light, let there be heaven, let there be waters, let there be dry land, let there be vegetation, let there be birds, fish, and whatever, all that stuff. So 10 times God says. So the Mishnah says, God could have said one utterance. Why did he say 10? And the Mishnah answers to punish the wicked who destroy the world created with 10 utterances, and to reward the righteous who sustain the world created by 10 utterances. In other words, how many felonies do you get? If you violate God's will in the world, how many felonies did you get? Right? You did one crime, but how many things did you violate? You broke a world created with one utterance is one felony, but you broke a world created with 10 different utterances, 10 felonies. On the positive side, if you do a mitzvah and sustain the world, you sustain the world, not just created with one utterance, you sustain the world created with 10 utterances, you get 10 times the reward. Seems a little interesting. The way Kabbalah explains this Mishnah, what's the difference between whether the world is created through one utterance or 10 utterances? What does that even mean? Here's what it means. A world created with one utterance is a world in which you see the oneness of God everywhere. It's a world in which you don't see diversity. It's a world, and imagine, it's not the world that we live in, by the way, just spoiler alert. Imagine a world where you walk outside and all you see is oneness. All you see is this singularity. All you see is the divine fingerprint, the divine imprint on everything. You might see trees and grass and cars and people. That might be what you sort of see, but what you really see is oneness. You see purpose. You see a single thread running through. You go about your day, and it's not like I'm eating, I'm working, I'm driving, I'm this, I'm socializing, I'm studying, but everything is really the same thing. And you see the singularity. Imagine a world in which the singularity was obvious. Imagine a world in which, to use Keanu Reeves' example-ish, imagine you saw the Matrix. Imagine you saw beneath the facade. You didn't just see stuff. You saw the code. You saw the coder. Imagine. Life would not be challenging. Well, it wouldn't be as challenging as it is. So that is not the world we live in. Let me just round this out for a second. Hold that thought. The world we live in is a world in which we don't see that truth immediately. We study it. That's why we're here, right? We study, we meditate on it, we expand our consciousness to appreciate that and ultimately arrive there, but we don't immediately see it. We immediately see distinction, right? I see me and I see you and I see two different people. We don't immediately see soul. We're the same. We both have a godly soul inside. Sure, the container might be different, but who cares about the container? Imagine you have a bunch of tea lights and you have a bunch of, you're doing a candle lighting, Shabbat candle lighting event. You have a bunch of people in a room, you're doing Shabbat candle lighting, and everyone takes their tea light and puts it into a glass, what's it called? Votive? Votive? Well, I don't know. Whatever it's called, right? A glass thing, right? Holder, glass holder. That's the technical term, a holder. I was gonna say thing, but I guess you're getting way more fancy than I am. You put it, and each glass is a little bit different. One is like a blue glass, and one is a red glass, and one is shaped like a round, and one is shaped like a square. But everyone's everyone has a flame. Everyone has a tea light. You light it. You say the blessing. Good Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos. Welcome. Are you going to say that my fire is different than your fire because it's in a different container? That's silly. It's all fire. It's all light. You say, oh, no. Yours is round, mine is square. Totally different. That's the container. Who cares about the container? Imagine if we saw life that way, where we saw human beings. We saw the core of, I can't see the core of who you are until I see the core of who am I. If I identify as a body versus a soul, myself, then I'm going to identify you as a body versus a soul. The only way I can see your soul is if I first see my soul. So the work always begins inside. But imagine I walked through life soul first, not body first, which means that I saw my soul. And then I immediately saw your soul. Your soul is in a container, but that's not who you are. You're not a container. You're a soul. You're a flame. You're a divine fire. That's who you are. You're not a container. Imagine I saw the soul in the collective universe around me, whether I looked up or down or side to side. If I saw the soul of the universe, that would be amazing. That would be what we would call an obvious perception of divine singularity, where you see oneness. You don't see diversity. I don't see billions of things or millions of things. No, I mean, how many people are there? There's billions of people, let alone things, huh? 8 billion. So I'm not seeing billions of people and trillions of things. I see oneness. I see oneness. I see singular. I see God in everything. And that's what I see first. Imagine that world. In that world, I wouldn't be challenged to live a meaningful life. I wouldn't have doubt. I wouldn't have fear. I wouldn't have anxiety. I would see the truth immediately and I would pursue that truth. And just for the record, that's not the world we live in. The world we live in is a world in which we do see the boxes. We do see the containers. And we find it so difficult sometimes to see the inside. And even for a moment, if we do see the inside and we have an epiphany, it's like, no, I see the inside. I see the truth. And a second later, the doors close again. We have these moments of epiphany. We have these moments of clarity. And then what happens a few moments later? The clarity closes. And it's like, oh, that person bugs me. I don't like them, or I do like them, or whatever it is. It closes and we begin to once again look at things superficially. And so this is how the world was created. Hashem wished to create the world initially with midat hadin. And I explained before that means that God wanted to create the world with strict justice. You mess up, you're out. Kabbalah says that's not what midat hadin means. It means God wanted to create the world with strict concealment. Gevurah can also mean tzimtzum, the idea of concealment, divine opacity, contraction. In other words, where God hides himself in such a way that it would be impossible, almost impossible to find him. Why would God want that? Good. Let's hold that question for a second. Then God says, no, that's not going to work. It's too concealed. If you don't even know to look for something, why would you even look? You're never going to find because you're never going to look. It's too concealed. So then God says, all right, so let me just come out in the open. Let me just put myself out there. It's also not good. So God blends a little bit of hiding, a little bit out in the open, and that is the balance of life. So you're asking the question, why would God want to hide in the first place? And this takes us all the way back full circle to how we started. The reason why God wants to hide from us is because darkness always precedes light. And it's because if you really want to get to the light, you have to go through the darkness. Anything that is handed to you on a silver platter is not as valuable, is not as precious, is not as dear to you, but it's also not as valuable in and of itself as that which is extracted from a place of darkness. This is a truth in life. It's a truth in human character. Character is built through challenge, through struggle, through going through adversity. Show me a hero, and you know without a doubt that there was an adversity story that precedes the heroism. You know it to be true. Avram has adversity. Yitzchak has adversity. Yaakov has adversity. Yosef has adversity. Moshe has adversity. David HaMelech has adversity. King David was wanted by his own father-in-law who wanted to kill him. That's a complicated Thanksgiving dinner, right?
He had two sons who wanted to kill him.
And he had sons that wanted to kill him. I mean, every hero is born from, through, despite, however you want, whatever word you want to use, adversity. Every hero faces adversity. Now, I think your question still stands. Why? Why couldn't it be that goodness could be born of goodness itself? Why isn't it that a hero can be born, depth can be summoned without any challenge? I don't know why the rules couldn't have been written like that. Why is it that if you want to bring out the best in a child, you put them in you give them a challenge? Why is it that if we want to bring out the best within ourselves, we put ourselves through a challenge, right? Why is it that if you want to bring out the strength in an athlete, in a football player, in a lineman, linebacker, you put steel or iron, you know what, I don't know what they're called. You know, those, the dummies, they put these and they run and they push against it. And that's when you unleash. Why can't you unleash your full muscle, all your muscles, when lifting nothing? Why do you need resistance to summon your power? I don't know. At the core, I don't know. And at the core, I don't think anyone knows. But this is the program. This is the way that the world was programmed. The way the world is programmed is that you can't summon, you can't, if you pick up a book, you're not using this book, you're not using all your muscles. You can't lift this and summon all your strength. You can't, no matter how hard you try. You're going to grip it, you're going to squeeze it. It's not the same. You put 200 pounds here, now you're talking. This, oh, I was expecting 200 pounds. Right, this, you're never going to get it. The strength, the inner strength only comes out with fierce resistance. The strength of the soul only comes out when faced with resistance. And in this context of today, adversity. You're not going to get to that depth of character or the depth of the soul without adversity. There's a book called, well, there's two books, 2 volumes. One is called Torah R, and one is called Likutei Torah. Torah R means Torah is light. Likutei Torah means a likut, a collection of Torah insights. From the same author, the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad. These are Hasidic mystical discourses, Kabbalistic insights on the Torah portion, the Parashiot. And many have the custom to study it every week, to study they tell a story, the Alter Rebbe, that he was born, just to give you context, he was a Hasidic master, a mystic. He was born in 1745 and died in 1812, and he lived in Russia. Okay, that's the background. It says that one time he walked in where students were studying, And he said in Yiddish, "Medarf leben mit der Zeit," and then he walked out. And that means in English, you have to live with the times. He walks out. It's like, live with the times. What does that mean? Like, what are we becoming, Russians? Like, we're just like becoming Cossacks? Like, what does it mean to live with the times? So his brother, the Mariel, explained what his brother, the Rebbe, had meant. Live with the time means you have to live with the Hasidische Parsha. You have to live with the Torah portion of the week on a mystical level. Not just read the Torah portion of the Parsha, but to study it based on the teachings of Kabbalah, based on the teachings of Jewish mysticism and the teachings of Hasidic philosophy. So I'll share with you, when you study these texts each and every week, you realize that there's a pattern. And he gets to the same themes every week. And it's almost the same question every week. He asks a question, Lama yarda neshama lamata. Why did the soul come down below? He asked it last week also. He asked it this week. I was studying it yesterday morning. Why was the soul sent below? Imagine the soul's consciousness before birth, divine consciousness. It was up in heaven, in Gan Eden, in paradise. The soul was basking in divine glory. Why did God take a soul that was in a very good place and banish it to a cold, dark world, in a cold and dark body, right? In a spiritually opaque space? Why would God, if we believe in a good God, why would a good God take a beautiful soul and put it into such a challenging place? And we all know the answer. It's literally the theme of today's class. And the answer is because it's only through the adversity that the soul faces below. It's only through spiritual adversity. It's only through the adversity that is born of living in this world and living in that body, your body and my body, right? Each of our particular souls. It's only through that experience that the soul arrives at its intended purpose. The soul only rises to its true potential through adversity. It can't get there in heaven. In heaven, it's basking in divine rays. It's on the beach. In heaven, the soul is on the spiritual beach, sitting back, right? It's in a beach chair. It's got its soul shades on. Soul shades, TM, trademark, right? Soul shades. It's literally basking in the Ziv HaShekhinah and the rays of the divine presence. It's loving life, loving God. There's clarity and everything is perfect. But you know what's missing? Adversity. And you're thinking, missing adversity? I could use some of that also, missing adversity. Who wants adversity? But God created the world. God created, the programming is that there's no growth without adversity. And you can't, it's not only growth, you can't maximize your potential, or you can't reach deep inside unless you are squeezed. It's the way it is. If you're not challenged, you're not going to grow. Imagine you take a smart kid and you put him in a class with easy information. The kid is not going to learn anything. The kid is not going to be challenged, and likely is going to become bored and do who knows what. What do you do with a child? What do you do with a bright child? You put him in a challenging class. Why? Can't they get, it's perfect. Leave them in a regular class. They'll ace every test. They won't have to study. Boom. No, that's not what you do. You take that child and you give them advanced math, advanced physics. You put them in an advanced class. Why? Why do you do that? Why do you put a kid in an advanced class? Because you know that unless there's challenge, you're not going to maximize potential. Unless the soul is challenged, it will never discover who it is or who she is, because the neshama soul is always feminine. The soul will never discover its true power up in heaven. And so the soul is sent below. The soul is sent to this world, a cold and dark space. Rabbi Zalman Posner was a Chabad rabbi in Nashville, Tennessee for many years, sent by the previous Lubavitch Rebbe in the 1940s. And he told Zalman Posner, Zalman Posner was sent to Nashville, and he was not happy. Because unlike those that are into Nashville hot fried chicken or whatever they eat in Nashville, is it a music town also?
Yes.
Nashville's a music town, country music. Many people would love that gig. I have a rabbi in Nashville. Great. Call me the honky tonk rabbi. Right. Isn't that amazing? That'll be great. Elvis, Nashville, maybe? No? Memphis.
Yeah.
All right, it was close. Tennessee, same state. Get to Nashville, whatever. Zalman Posner grew up in Pittsburgh. His father, Shalom Posner, was the first Chabad rabbi in Pittsburgh. When my grandfather moved to Pittsburgh in 1944, so he taught at the school that Zalman Posner's father had created. So he saw these guys, the Posner boys grow up, and then Zalman Posner gets sent to Nashville, Tennessee. And he came back to the rabbi and he said, what is this? What am I doing in Nashville? I want to live in Brooklyn, where all the Jews are. Nashville, Tennessee? What am I doing in Nashville? And the Rebbe tells him, the soul was sent from above into a cold and dark space, specifically to bring light into that space. You're in Nashville to bring light and warmth into Nashville. What's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is we would all love to live an easy life. We all even ask and pray for an easy life. Imagine you had no worries. Imagine you had all the money you needed, all the health you needed, all the nachas you needed. Imagine you had nothing to worry about. Imagine all your needs were taken care of. Silver platter with people feeding you grapes, that's the thing, and fanning you. Imagine you're on the beach and everything is good. It would be great, right? Where would the growth come from? Where would the growth come from? Because it's only through adversity that we grow. Vayhi erev, vayhi boker yom echad. You only get to the morning when you go through the evening first. You only get to the breakthrough if you've had the challenge first. You know, they say necessity is the mother of invention. You know what that really means? If you never had a need, you wouldn't create anything. If all your needs were taken care of, so then why don't I need to do anything? Nowadays they have creatives that create solutions before the problem, right? And they're trying to get. Anybody remember this product called the Juicero? Anybody remember this one? It's like a Kickstarter thing. Unbelievable. It's basically this machine that you put in pods, kind of like a one of those coffee machines. Yeah, put in pods and you get juice. And it worked great, and then you buy special pods, different fruit. And then it was like, one second, time out. Why are we not using actual fruit? And what is even happening here? Right? Creating a solution to a problem that doesn't exist usually doesn't work.
You mean creating a problem and then a solution?
God creates the problems, and then he wants us to come up with the solutions. That's the story of life. What I'm not suggesting today that we resign ourselves to the fact that life is difficult and life is terrible and life is this is not by any means meant to be a doomsday thing or meant to be in any way negative. On the contrary, today's session is meant to be entirely positive. The message is that the challenges and the adversity that we face is not by accident. It's not, by some cosmic, accident of whatever, of atoms and molecules, slamming together and this is what it is. It's all carefully crafted by our Creator to bring out the best within us, to provide just the challenge we need. And our sages tell us, to conclude, that every soul has its particular mission in this world. And every soul faces the specific challenges that it needs to push against in order to grow in its specific way. Which means that when a person says, my challenges, they're impossible, but let me fix your challenges. Let me tell you how you need to fix your life. Let me tell you how, what you need to do to correct. That's a distraction because it's easy to fix someone else's problems. Why? Because they're not your problems. It's easy because that is not what your soul is challenged with. Of course, it's easy to fix someone else's problems because that's not your challenge. The challenges you find the most difficult are the ones that are intended for you. And so the message I want to share with you today is that there is no morning without night, and there is no day. There is no day, there's no yom without first going through this process of darkness and then light. We find ourselves in uniquely challenging times. There are unique challenges that we face domestically, unique challenges that we face internationally, unique challenges that we face in Israel, unique challenges that we face in our own communities and in our own homes, and even more locally in our own hearts and souls. And the message that Kabbalah teaches us is to remember a few things. Number one, no challenge is by accident. If we find ourselves hitting up against something, pushing up against something, it's not something that is, annoyingly in our way. It's perfectly placed within us to push us to a deeper place, number one. And number two, the intention is not to get us stuck. The intention is to bring out the light. The moment we understand that, we neutralize the obstacle itself. As long as you see the obstacle as an obstacle, then you might get stuck. But if you see the obstacle as a catalyst, right, as designed to make you grow, then you look it in the face and you say, oh, I know why you're here. You're here for my benefit. And that changes everything. May we all see our challenges as opportunities, our obstacles as hurdles, and may we utilize this construct of darkness and light, first darkness, then light, to achieve the greatest light in our lives, the light of the breakthrough. Thank you for joining me this morning. Hope you enjoyed the class. It's good to see you.
Amazing class. Thank you very much.
Laura,
Close.
very close, super close, but not at all. Thank you.
Beautiful class. Thank you very much. Amazing.
Thank you, Mariana. Thank you. How's Chile?
Very nice. It's very cold and very nice.
Winter. Okay. Frank, good to see you. The beautiful blue California sky behind you. Love that. Jacqueline, great to see you. Tony. Nice. Tony, you wrote something here. In that example, there would be no need for faith because the presence of God would be obvious. Correct. Which wouldn't be a challenge. And we wouldn't grow without challenge. Good. Tony, how's the baby?
Good, thank you. She's almost 14 weeks old now.
Unbelievable. 14 weeks?
14 weeks, yeah.
How many months is that? 14 weeks is
3.5 months. She's 3.5.
Unbelievable. Wow.
Thank you.
To many more. Laura, don't leave before you give me your I'll get your email. Wow. Amazing. Continue to have lots of nachas, lots of pride and joy and love, and give her a hug from me, please.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Hey,
Pleasure.
Rabbi?
Earl, great to see you. Yaakov, great to see you.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Got a question. So if God created us from God's light, and our purpose is to transform some type of darkness into light, how can we possibly perfect God's light? Like what actually is going on? Because it seems like,
There's two ways
God's
to look
light.
at it. There's two ways to look at it. Number one is that God hides the light behind the obstruction.
Yeah.
And when we break through the obstruction, then we find the light that was hidden in there. That's one way. The other way is that through the breakthrough, we actually generate a greater light than before. That's, I think, what you're asking. How can we generate a greater light than God's initial light?
Correct.
The answer to that is because God allows it to happen. It's a good question, and there are ways to understand that you can give someone the tools, and then they can create something greater than the sum total of the tools. In other words, when you give an artist paint, right? Mariana, I'm thinking of you, right? You give an artist right? Whatever is paper, whatever creative material, and then they create something. That creation is typically more beautiful, more valuable than the initial core materials themselves. Not to diminish, not to put down the materials themselves. They were beautiful and of the world and glorious. But when an artist, through their own challenges and experience, creates something, what's produced is typically even greater than before. God gives us the raw materials. God has the challenge, the light, the darkness. God has the light. But when we create the masterpiece from that, it's usually more valuable than before.
And we also not only creating beauty, but we're creating strength as well. So
Correct.
how do we strengthen?
Think about it. Think about it. When you lift weights, think about it. When you lift weights, you build muscle, you build strength, right? The more adversity we push back against, the stronger we become. So as strong as the soul was before it came down below, number one, it never had to flex its muscles in heaven. It never had to face a challenge. So it didn't even know how strong. God knows how strong the soul is, but the soul doesn't even know how strong it is because it never had challenge. Number one. Number two, as strong as the soul was above, even that it didn't know its own strength, it becomes stronger down here. Again, let's say someone can lift 200 pounds, but they never had 200 pounds to lift. So step one is lift 200 pounds. Step two is keep on lifting, and now you can lift 300 pounds.
But we're not strengthening God. We're strengthening a part of God that's
strengthening our soul. Yeah, and you know what, God, it's in Kabbalah, it uses some shocking language that we're even adding light to God. How is that possible? I understand the theological questions on that. Mark, hold on 1 second. But that's kind of the language that's used. It's theologically radical, but Kabbalah is kind of radical like that. That's how we like it.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. All right. Well, maybe God does change a little bit. Maybe God does change.
Oh, sorry? Say it again?
Maybe God does change in some aspects.
We have to be careful on how we frame it and how we phrase it. But there is this dynamic quality. Let's put it that way. Dynamic quality. We have to be careful. That's why these things, Kabbalah was typically, kept on the down low, because it does raise these types of questions. So we have to be careful in how we conceptualize and not concretize it too much. But in general, there is a dynamic, it's God is in a dynamic versus static state as well. All right. Good to see you guys. Have a wonderful week. Ray and Dr. Maxey and Larry and Tony and Mariana and Jacqueline and Yaakov. Great to see you guys. Look out. I mean, I think I've put out most of the stuff. There's some more stuff brewing. We're doing a seminar about Israel starting in a few weeks. We're doing a course on the election issues that matter in a few weeks. We're doing a course on the afterlife in a few weeks. So look at all that on the website, the Torah Center ATL.org for more information. All right. See you guys. Shavua Tov. Sending lots of love to everybody. Bye, guys.